要学习王道没得那个见到这王道，怎么就是不是做就这些天下天的天嘞，哎呦，早就别你。Let us cultivate bodhicitta motivation, seeking complete enlightenment for the benefit of all other sentient beings. And with that kind of motivation, we should participate in this Lamrim teaching on the stages of path leading to highest enlightenment. To give you the blessing of oral transmission, allow me to read about a page or two from the Tibetan text. We are in volume number 3, English translation of the Lamrim Chemo, and Geshe will read where he left off last time.
明朝阳东明朝的龙的呢的咋啦？看啥给他们倒闭倒闭我西北省的学习都没有么都看他没。没到我西北省了，电脑碰不自由就住到忙多了，怕对抗啥讲自由对有不是什么老本地西北这那个。看啥当时不到面诺，你把这个那的把什么日别个讲我说当的我把老的来台上看给一切把东西把这里。到去了就走了，到不了什么个什么来，把这个些个就在到个叫我嘛先把我别些路个，然后那些个这个这个这到我那边那看啥的么的，明年完了没看啥的些个不那没把这些没把些别同个那样没就大的那些的，那么我些个的不个把些位置，那把嘛想的这个别干嘛个，现在老把。亲戚嘛，老把明白现在的就了，他们就把这个地方这么些什么就是听了，我搁这样没得，前面他也叫个这都是对比，自我的刚那，刚才到这家个嘛叫这样个些你，他是头发长啊，那你看吧，他么绿呢，那他么绿呢，因为的他都有我不是写吧。先把这边先把来照明的时候，还正天气那是那刚把下雨去我们出门先把，刚那呢云这等这些人把顺顺位，前边他这东西个到我的你这个说这把是许多的现在个这里把我先把这些的我们先那。当的我嘛是那么当样那切的东没啥我这边说你我说我是我是不是我比雄鹿，你把个这我嘛是把我比雄鹿个把了你个这我是好像吃不起我吃不起个吧。个这我在家就我个把当不了你对吧？就把到对没对吧？对吧？我当不了。他大约我们没多么往对吧？屏幕这边叫我老师这个你说不啦？说我们这些人别那边送的那几节吧就去他这个不也得，现在就开朗巴拉这个别几把钱那么大是吧？对咱也没现在也没那时候别没什么他们这个别呢，但是忙对别去没下了。现在这个那些随便方面一些几万见过的清楚说，这样没法随便那提，希望大家应该别叫我说明的。今天叫我说的那天来听你这边这边就是他们这说的没得谁呢？这边就是这边我们有把的我说就是说这边说的那这边去边同意吧，现在的。天津的个叫我老师我也把这我前面说不没这个当不打着那天过年随便一时间里面叫没吧随便听着我没得了，他那边没给先把老师没这完对那天天知道等了我前面爸爸刚没写的，刚没写的知道这个时间前面人没这个的节目了，没得那样啊前面没叫的绿的也叫前面没看的我不知道菜一呢。旁边老姐是老姐是家些当如果这样啊，那么个这的上面的上面些准备吃了，那些准备吃了什么没有着想，前面没着想也不对吧？那让人们对这个这帮样这帮人没得多，他俺这开始提干了嘛，在大看见。大人一直话肯定提大个人嘛都是提大空的嘛长的，因为不得不的你些提，其实提不得不的弄的嘛，他提的嘛来是吧？不得不的看这大的是吧？可以没得大个些呢，大的也没得提没得你只可是大的没呢，因为大的个那边碰不错的个了，碰不刚刚那热气往这边落几个嘛这些。不能马上铺没法多少呢？因为老的马上铺没法，那还没法这个嘛的，现在如果马上铺那话大那其他让我也没有听懂什么，听懂他上就多这些。现在听个这些，我就他的听这些你马龙马我成他的上街讲嘛，我给他送下去是吧？我送下提前，我那让在坑上，
Okay, children have children's class in the next room. Okay, so 보고서를 진짜치고 again. So Geshe read up to page 128 in the volume number 3 in English translation of Lamrim Chenmo. And those of you who may be using an e-book version, the main subpoint is called refuting an overly broad identification of the objects to be negated. And under that, there are two subpoints stating others' assumptions and showing that those assertions are wrong. So it's right under stating others' assertions. One of the things that we talked about last time is this, that if self or I, dag in Tibetan, couldn't exist intrinsically. In other words, if there is no intrinsically existent I or the self, da, then there wouldn't be intrinsically existent feelings, consciousness, and these all other aggregates. Yeah. And the example given today to illustrate the point is when we know there is no such thing as a barren woman's son or a child, then we can talk about a barren woman's child's nose and the tongue and eyes, so forth, because that's non-existent, isn't it? Yeah. So like that, if there is no intrinsic self, then there are no other intrinsic aggregates, such as aggregate of feelings, as aggregate of discriminated awareness, and so on. So one of the arguments that has been laid out here is do realized Shervakas or hearers realized in the sense who have realized selflessness of the person, do they also realize what we call selflessness of self and selflessness of phenomena or not? Yeah. And if because they have realized selflessness of a person, if we also contend that they have also realized the selflessness of a phenomena, and then there is no need for Madhyamigins, and especially Prasangika Madhyamigins, to make efforts to establish selflessnesses of a person and phenomena. So as we talked about this before, because in the lower schools of Buddhist thought as well as in higher schools of Buddhist thought, we accept that self is an imputed phenomenon. 딱유. Okay. But that being said, what does an imputed phenomenon mean? In terms of the meaning, it differs. What is meant by imputed phenomenon in the lower schools of Buddhist thought, and what is meant by an imputed phenomenon in the Prasangika Madhyamika system, it has meaning difference, if you will. Yeah. And in the lower schools of Buddhist thought, where we talk about selflessness of a person or self as an imputed phenomenon, it really refers to a self being empty of self-sufficient and substantial existence. Okay? And there is no such a self. There is no self-sufficient, substantially existent self. The interpretation called Rangja Thube Zeyu Yita. There isn't such a self, and that's what's meant by self as being an imputed phenomenon or tagyu. Yeah? But for Prasangikas, self being an imputed phenomenon means it is merely labeled. It is a mere labeling or imputations, depending called taksam. Okay? So there's a big, huge difference between two understandings of imputed phenomenon here. And so Prasangikas wouldn't say that Shervakas who have realized selflessness of a person have actually realized the kind of selflessness of a person and selflessness phenomena that they talk about in their system, because there is a meaning difference, if you will. Okay? So, relating to that, then we refer back to, for example, Phuntsok, clear word commentary. And this is, I think, related to chapter 8 from Pranjana Paramita textbook. They used examples of, in a dream state where we can dream about creating all kinds of karmas. Okay, so if you realize the selflessness, selflessness of the dream state, all the things happening in the dream. So would you say that you have also realized the selflessness as a Prasangika talk about? Okay, but one of the things that we're relating to that is when you think in terms of karmic actions, lende, karma and results, there is a difference in terms of karmic actions performed in the dream state versus karmic actions performed in an actual situation. Yeah? And so we have to really pay attention to those differences as well. So all of those arguments are related together.
Zeyu Geshe already, Shena, take you taking any take of goes to any shape with the Shambo, said that the government take you in the shape with this, taking Kagache. So Tidak, Goma, any Casa, Tawi Siagi, Chu Momboji, take you because he no Tomata told the words, the motto was or tell the words, did a bend that did a Oma Bandushin, Oma Rangi was in that not to begin that the much that only when you got good to Tosira. To go to Tosio, the Ina, Ramun Tosio, so that Ramun told about Tosora, take you as prison and told about good to Marva, or Tindel Soji, you wrote to this or the Karsa. I told about that. That Konduya Gundo yourself, Kayen Karsa. The Tondo to yourself, Kayen and Omabe and the Gundo de Yomaris, Rovata, the Toda by yourself, that Ramu to Shijela, and the Toda told you, Kondo that the Tondo Gundo Yawani, Rajibe Cheshurva. What the Konduya Tondo yourself, the Tony that Rajibe Tondo to yourself. Tondum de Suma, Rajibe, the Rangi use the Rava. Raji, you want the Tony, that's the Maja Rangi, you want the Rava. But that is situation, anything you be a good hotel, Rangi was a good hotel, Yomara. But Tony Rangi was a good hotel, Yomar, is she? Here in the Tadaki, any came a big Karsa. Kaza Tayu said the Ming Duggy, the Tone Dugmaris, Karasa, that is what that. Rangi Menji Tayo said, this is the yun the rakba sigdo
no,
yun se no lo dawa so jiro wa
no, so,
the rakba se na da khangwe so ro be dokdo su mambu du sho de rakba sigdo wa
no, so,
다 코저 땅이 비 주제 가서 코저 바 시소는 녹도 매 차로 말해
그래.
디다 땅이 있어 왔다
ale,
다그 땅동 접지 공부 카도 써 접지나
no,
인 제요 있어 그 공부 카도 가지 째는 공부 랑자 되기를 뭐 이제 그 공부로 놀아 요 말와
그래,
어디제 다 강과도 시현의 강별로 놀도 그러와
그래,
저 땅이 있어 왔다 코저 땅이 되지 되고 뭐 이제 대요 민자 땅이 말와
그래.
어디 되고 가서
Jadi tanda kita tahu juga umat saya itu cuma baca dari baca.
Lah.
Kang basine pena.
어디 주도 오면 주도 오면 또 tenjo 어디 민간 땅에 들어와 주도 오면 땅에 있어 주요 기자 도와 주요도 공부 소리샤 땅에도 강배 소리 가지 라바 강가 샤고 로든 다와서 유다 촉바도 샤고 도와 어디
No. So the big difference exists in understanding of Taoyu, imputed phenomena or phenomenon, according to lower Buddhist schools of thought and according to Prasangika Madhyamikan school of thought. Nguyamawa, essentialist or materialist, but sometimes we can translate as, they do talk about imputed phenomena and substantial phenomena, if you will. Okay, for example, a substantial phenomenon or zeyu in Tibetan, according to them, is a kind of phenomenon. Let's say, for example, blue as a color. You cannot destroy, so to speak, the blueness of the blue color, because whenever you see something that's blue, you will always have the mind perception seeing that as a blue. Okay? And so blue is considered as an example of what we call zeyus, maybe substantially existent phenomenon or substantial phenomenon, zeyu. Whereas Taoyu, imputed phenomena, is something, for example, a building or a house. Okay? If we kind of destroy the house, or if we analyze the house in any minor details, right, exclude every part of the house, then we will also, then there's nothing left that is to be perceived as a house per se. Everything is dismantled, if so to speak. Okay? So that kind of a phenomenon, where when you dissect everything, and at the end, you don't see anything now, that's a house per se. Okay, so that kind of phenomenon is called imputed phenomenon or Taoyu, according to the lower Buddhist schools of thought. Lower means Sevatandika Madhyamikans and below. Okay, but that's not the meaning of imputed phenomenon according to Prasangika school, Tenjurwa, Prasangika Madhyamikan. For them, Taoyu means, as we said, everything is merely labeled. There's so much emphasis put on the word merely, some in Tibetan. Okay, tak some. Yeah, merely imputed, merely labeled. There's so much debate about that. The word merely. Okay, that's a very instrumental word. So what Geshe has explained is, for example, as then again, kunja bade so tayo du gor wa duta ome kunja tayo du gor wa
duta ome tayo de da rakpa da yun da rakpa sa de khangba she yun sa de lo dan da wa de sha gor wa ta lo da ji da ji pu yin sin lo yo ma wa de de tayo so da dong ji ko la de de tayo da dong kha de ko ran ja de gi do no zeyo
no so among the conventional phenomena, what the lower schools of Buddhist thought accept even as conventionally existent, from Prasangika Madhyamika's point of view, do not exist at all. See that? Something in the lower schools of Buddhist thought considered as imputed phenomena, right, that exist conventionally. For example, the imputed example we just gave is a house. Or another one is something that exists continuously, the continuity of things. So, when you look at a year is constituted by 12 months, and each month is constituted by whatever, right? And so if we take out a month from a year, then there's no year. is less than the ear, isn't it? So that kind of phenomenon, the ear is considered as imputed phenomenon. But according to lower schools of Buddhist thought, these imputed phenomena exist objectively from their own side, isn't it? So from Prasangika point of view, like, well, there is nothing that exists objectively. So even the things lower Buddhist schools of thought accept to exist conventionally, and in the category of things called imputed phenomena, according to Prasangika Madhyavikas, they don't exist at all. Okay? So that's the one thing. And also, like in the lower schools of Buddhist thought, okay, let's talk about Savatandika Madhyamika school of thought, one of them. Okay? According to Savatandika Madhyamikans, even emptiness, their version of emptiness, it exists from its own side, right? It's a combination of something existing from its side, something labeled. And for them, that is the ultimate reality. That is the final reality of things. But according to Prasangika schools of thought, that is not even existent. There's nothing that exists intrinsically from its own side. Okay, so those are the differences we have to attend to understand the debate that has been going between the essentialist and the Prasangika Madhyamika schools.
다다 디게 다 명단에 도움을 다다디 텐조로시나 에네 강사 그 다시 풍보데 에네 데바트베 덴지군다 간지 디마젬베 에네 젬바티브게 마토파두 에네 강사 다음에 또 봐요 말레스 디메다는 다다 텐조와 그런 따서는 런지 면지게 다음에 또 말아봐 또 말레스 저 다음에 라바도 그러봐 텐조와 다음에 저들 런지 강사 런지면 샤고라 현다게 저저 샤고라 그래서 지도자는 다 텐조시는 가서 최이도 뭐 강사 다음에 또 스타티 돈다 가래서는 에네 최이가 가서 풍벌다 쉬어서는 제단도 쉬어 담제래디 리다다데 다히다 강사 부분이 샤고라 제가 강사 풍벌데 데마데베야 젬바데 코라 귤위에 친제라 에네 가서 뒤에 친제라 군다 위에 친제라 강사 되면 강사 다음에 또 해요 말이지 제가 고도 뒤에 강가 또 해야 돼 되면 제가 도움해 봐 다들 타와 당겨 가요 봐 어떻게 가 배워줘라다
So somewhere in this text, the other day, we talked about this. According to Prasangika Madhyamikans, in order to realize the selflessness of a person, right, the way it is worded is, we need to understand or realize the selflessness of phenomena. Now, phenomena in a genetic sense are everything that exists which is not a person or a self, is a phenomena. But in this particular context, really phenomena refers to the aggregates, the basis of a self, right? The aggregates that constitute the basis of a self are referred to as phenomena. So if we don't understand the selflessness of aggregates as the basis of self, then we will not be able to understand the selflessness of a person or a self. Now, what does that really mean, right? And one of the things that we talked about that time is, what it really means is somewhere in our mind we believe that aggregates are intrinsically existent, but we're struggling to understand the selflessness of a person. Unless we give up that belief, we will never be able to realize or understand the selflessness of a person. Okay? So that's the meaning of the statement that claims that without knowing or realizing the selflessness of phenomena, we will not realize the selflessness of a person.
Okay? that in the end of the case. That Nibata to get the Bagada, that the one of the Nibatigo del Gul, some he's in the size of somebody, hotel, that Rebecca Garza. Most of Rebecca just in the country is. And to Goya, can go see Riparawa. That Chibata, the daughter, Rebecca Garden, and dog you Girada. What is some shit? That Tomoda Gaza liver mercy with you. Gaza Mumasimban Gobi, Luke Gaba, wrong look. 제 아니 가시에 무지be 수로 숨신 다 당고 돼야 네 가자 리버 무식 유제들이 레발레 어디래 유제 가르선들이 유제 그런데 강사 대민도 그냥 그래 애들 강사 제주시는 다 강사들 인도的민도 제주시 왔라 강사 그런 거 마시는 거 유명하고 말와 근디는 다 다시야지 누가 따고 있는 그 다시 뭐 신경은 비는 니는 쟤는 그 이야기 말와 어쨌다 근데 디제와 강사 제주는 강사들 인도도 다 강사들 학보고 그러마 내가 나에는 가자 베게 최근 내로도 제운데서 근데 유저 메저를 봐 제운데서다 러시아 전에 디데지 요르산이 비게 체주고 그러 어디 이지물이 해고 그랬어 이러와 다음에 봐 가서 다음에 봐다 러시아에 돈이 발라야 메주 다다 러시아 리보로 무슨 거데스 어디 거데스 구고하셔 다 가제지 리버 마샤나 네 마샤나 티카바 시제 말로바 명이 시제 말로 명이 비셔서 가제지 리버 마샤나 시다 가자 코는 랑시 저바세야데 요마르티 신의 랑시 세 동시 샤야요와现在同时养不就我嘛是不是？那同时我是的，要么那吃送啊，这不是我是，要么吃下就我是呢。那干啥干的咋的？要么那干啥用作干么多？要么那干吃的这个么多，大可能下冬嘛是吧？我觉得下冬嘛的也是。他们都白开的，真的就有了是吧？大部分我嘛是吧？第一个名字先生比些少啥？是大部分我嘛是吧？大部分我是的，咱看见电子的先用人当是什么？咱看见人当的要不我马上把了。इन देजी शेम में बतेल फटू मारे से आधोदारवा बतेरे केसुं बतेल गाजा में रे केबर थाये जंस गाजा दो दिबे जावा निकांना ने गाजा थाजी के बंजोरोस ओतेरे दा जिदा गाजा थारा दोसिन दा छुरे रे गाजा रे योगते बे तमदे मावदे योसबा दा जो रे दा खांसा दा फुंबु गां शायना इन खांसा राही चबा द फुंबु राही चबा से शा रे बा ओते दा राही चबा खरसे तो बे दा समाय बा युदिन दे चबा दिस दा राही चबा दि जिवा रो ओ तिखा के देस कोता
So we are on page 125. It's not labeled, but it's 125. The main heading of the caption reads, misidentifying the object to be negated. And then all other, outlines are laid out there. The actual determination reality, and under that, identifying the object to be negated by reason. That has two subpoints. Why the object of negation must be carefully identified. B, refuting other systems that refute without identifying the object to be negated. Then under that, it has subpoints. Okay, so those of you who have the English textbook, all the outline is given there. And so on page 126, first thing first, so to speak, in order to realize emptiness or selflessness, we have to engage in what we call analysis. Okay? And the number one step in the analysis is precisely identifying the object of negation or gakcha in Tibetan. Yeah? And so we have to make every best of effort to identify the object of negation as it is, right? You know, not more, not less. It has to be precise, if you will. If we miss this point, then we will not be able to understand selflessness or emptiness. So this is the crux of the matter, and we really need to, understand it. And the example given is if we are in search of a person called Tashi, at least we should have some recognition of who the person Tashi is, isn't it? If we have no idea who the Tashi is, Tashi could be in this room, but we'll never find Tashi because we don't know who Tashi is, isn't it? So if we have some facial recognition or whatever image recognition, then we can go in search of Tashi. Tashi is here, Tashi is not here, whatever, we can do that, right? In the same way, for us to be able to understand selflessness or emptiness of intrinsic existence, it is essential for us to have a clear image in our mind of what is intrinsic existence, okay, which is the object of negation, if you will. According to Prasangika Madhyamikans, there is no such thing as intrinsic existence or intrinsically existent. Intrinsic existence is a non-existent. That said, we could still have an image of should anything exist intrinsically, right? How should it exist? We can still have that image in our mind, isn't it? We can have an idea in the mind. Yes, nothing exists intrinsically. That's the idea. But to understand that, we have to say, should anything exist intrinsically? How should it exist? What is the criteria? What is the yardstick by which we can say, here, this is it, right? We should have clear idea about that. That is part of identifying precisely what we call the object of negation or Gyeltsen. Okay. Now we could make two potential mistakes here. In identifying the object of negation, we might do it more in the sense overestimate it, and so that's called overestimation. So then we might end up negating almost everything that exists. That is a problem, isn't it? Or that we fall short of identifying it. We identify it less than what it is. So in which case, we have not been able to identify precisely what the object of negation is. So therefore, our refutation of the object of negation is not going to be cool, isn't it? That's what I learned from my students. Okay, so we have to be very precise in identifying what intrinsic existence is. And some of the other words we use that go with that is intrinsic existence means something existing from its own side, object of existence or existing in and of itself. Yeah? So that is the object of negation or Gyeltsen, according to Phuntsok. And so look on that. Something another way we talk about this is we use different expressions to deal with this. Is in order to get rid of our grasping at intrinsic reality. That grasping exists, isn't it? Intrinsic reality doesn't exist, but that grasping exists. We have to be able to identify precisely what are we really grasping at. What is the referent object? The technical term shenul in Tibetan. What is the reference or referent object of our grasping? If we can identify that the referent object of grasping does not exist at all, okay, now we will be able to understand the selflessness of the emptiness. Okay, because its absence of that referent object is the selflessness of the emptiness according to Phuntsok.
어때 제가 다 가자 뮤에 시야 될래야 아니 제가 가자 차라 뭐보다 시다마에 거야네 성디 여러 어디 근데 가자 뮤스인데 차에 가자 뮤 성고고 그랬어 차에 가자 뮤 맞으나는 아니 가자 멀고 가도 말봐 가자 뭐 인다 인데시고 딱다 성도 그랬어 딱다 성도 담에 또 말봐 가지다 담에 또 뭐든 코아다 지와요 말봐 코아 주고 말했어 더 가자 뭐 참샤 좀现在 tanyi me wa jia me wa zhou xian dong fa gao ne ni le ji de la su gang ge guo de ne de le ji bu zhou de yin song jie ge de shi kan ji xie da 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 kha ru ji ge ma do ji ga zhe gu mo xin ne wo ti kha ru ji ge ta xue za de shi da ge zhe pa zi la de de wu se wo ba zhi de pa la de de wo shi
So on page 126, we have this, kind of classic quote from Bodhisattva Master Shantideva's engaging in the Bodhisattva deeds. I quote, "Without contacting the entity that's imputed, you will not apprehend the absence of that entity." Yeah, unquote. And so this tells us about the centrality of precisely identifying the object of negation in order to understand the absence of that or the non-existence of that object, okay, which is the selflessness or emptiness. And as Geshe just explained, that in the different Buddhist schools of thought, even we just limit to Buddhist schools of thought, Buddhist schools of thought may identify object of negation differently. Yeah. For example, in the Vaibhasika or the realist or the materialist, they might identify object negation differently than other Buddhist schools of thought. But we must be able to identify, if you will, the subtlest object of negation, in other words, the subtlest version of the object of negation. If we fall short of that, what happens is that even if we think we have refuted the object of negation, but still something is left over, isn't it? Which means still we could be grasping at some true existence or intrinsic existence. As long as we have certain grasping at true existence, intrinsic existence, we cannot realize emptiness or selflessness. Yeah? So we have to get at the subtlest version, in other words, of the object of negation. Otherwise, we could fall into the extreme of eternalism, right? Somewhere we still have this necking thing. We're grasping at something that is intrinsic existence, and so then we're still stuck in samsara because there's something grasping at intrinsic existence. On the other hand, if we overdo our job, so to speak, we refute too much in a sense, then we could fall into the extreme of nihilism or cheda, right? Now we said, okay, do whatever the hell you want to do. To make my point, that seems like the right expression. And then now we really don't respect the law of karma and actions, right? So you can do whatever you wanted to do. So by kind of doing that, we have to pay for the karma, right? Do whatever you want to do, then welcome aboard. You will pay the price. Then you will end up with the bad, you means we will end up in the unfortunate states of rebirth. So the crux of the matter is we really need to figure out what is the middle path, right? Try to stay in the middle. We are trying to do that, but we haven't been able to find the middle path yet, and trying to stay in the middle is where our challenge is, isn't it? We try to stay balanced in the middle, but we are wavering and falling here and there, so this is the problem.
다 런주 면제 가자들 잡숑아 가거든. 와. 가자 킥토고 창모 킥토고 말아. 그 말다 잡숑아 시그와. 어디 니여스. 어디세. 다 디노 당보들 대바지와 디베데베데 뭐다 당보들 가르도 선다디 가지 아장으로 그러지. 네. 다 다다 오마 비신이 되었어. 다 제르브 슈브 가득다 오마 비신이 되었어. 대바 페모체디 가르세나 디 커서 가르되었으나 껴라서 간가 데모 거기 집에 리베인 손은 남지에 봐디 케그레스야 손은 남지에 봐서 데레 가지 용 예바델레 시데 네가 자디에서 데데레요라 풍봉에 데가네 풍봉에 데데지 고고 풍봉하러 봐 속동 봐서 주마데 남지에다 스티 데지 자다 예 데고 자다 예 사줘라 티나다 쉐탐지 로어라 제가 누구야다 इन दादा दोनों जी में रिक्वा थी इन चुए तब जी डेमट में का अनुग दोस अते का से ता दोनों युवा जी घंटे दिखे रहा से करता कुछ देवा से करता करसा सुन ना ये बात किक बाई इंदे शेंजा ही खेलंग बालायंग रिक्वे जी जेवा न दास में दो जमे में चलो से जेता चुए घंटे जी ना कोई निजी रहा जे न ता तेंजो से ना इधर तक नो से नि को पे युल निजी जान नि दो आस ओ जे ता निजी युन कोंदे दे रिबे जेसु दा निजी यो नि दे जिग de song दो आ अले नो सो नोंजो तेंजो लो रे से ना एने निजी में ना रिबे जेसु रो दो मा रिबे जेसु से दा नि यो मा रो वा 다 쉬어 담지 당선서 니지 메바 케랭고 인딜랑도 람드가 케랭고 와 콘도 니요 말에 되냐 리베제스 누구 말와 다 콘도데 리베제스다 니지 메바 니디 찍바서 데 투사도 히델 주다 세다 돈도지 리베카 하세도 다디 그 돈도지 리베 많이 바 다가로 리베카 바 샤도가 어때 먼저데 많이 버스 펜도 폼바도 볼로티게 까또 말이지 신호 보바도 올라디 까와 가지 까요 말아 까 주도 뭐 그거 啥地方么？高瓦开高要嘛的吧？
노래.
我听到是俺做的，因同志这边历史的个，因工作学你个嘛的高嘛的也是，
노래.
同志这边我的开始搞个是搞啥的搞个啦，
노래.
我的也是，我的工作接受的，日本嘛这么你这个晓得，我的出啥的？
노래. At the bottom of page 126, we have the outlines laid out, refuting other systems that refute without identifying the object to be negated. This has two parts. Part one, refuting an overly broad identification of the object to be negated. This is what I said. You know, we get overly excited and overdo the things, right? Refuting too much, which means now we end up saying that nothing exists at all, even conventionally. That's the problem. Over broad identification. Refuting an overly restricted identification of the object to be negated. That means we have fallen short of precisely identifying the object of negation, and so therefore we still are not able to refute completely the object of negation because there's something left over. So these are the two extremes that we have to be aware of. And then on page 127, it says, refuting an overly broad identification of the object to be negated, kapchewa in Tibetan, has two subpoints, stating others' assertions and showing that those assertions are wrong, right, two subpoints. So now, pertaining to that, what Geshe has explained is this. Okay, maybe I should read the first portion and then translate the explanation given. 127, under the caption stating others' assertions reads, I'm reading. Most of those who today claim to teach the meaning of Madhyamika say that all phenomena ranging from forms through omniscient consciousness are refuted by rational analysis of whether production and such exist as their own reality, unquote. Yeah. And so the explanation given on this, this is like a Buddhist classification system, said, all the things from the forms to the omniscient mind, means everything that exists are included within these categorizations, if you will. Right? Within these categorizations, in a classic Buddhist text, we call 108 topics. Yeah? So within 108 topics, between the forms and the omniscient mind, everything that exists should be included. So basically they said, when we put everything that exists under ultimate analysis, and so we don't find it, right? Nothing is found under ultimate analysis. And so now the essentialists are saying, in other words, they're saying that, well, means nothing exists at all, right? Because the mind that is, doing the analysis, ultimate analysis of every phenomenon that exists from the forms to the omniscient mind, at the end of the analysis, nothing is findable, nothing is found. And now they took that unfindability as meaning non-existence, complete, non-existence. And then they come to the conclusion, they said, you know what? That's it. Nothing exists at all. Right? That is overly broad identification of the object of negation. Yeah. And so because they said, here is the mind that's doing ultimate analysis, and it does not find anything under this analysis. So it refutes the very existence of phenomena. Right? So nothing exists at all. So that's their argument, but they got the argument wrong. Okay? Yes, nothing is findable under that analysis, but that unfindability does not mean things don't exist even conventionally. So their translation of unfindability as equal to non-existence goofed, it's got wrong. Okay? So that's why they fall into the extreme of nihilism, if you will. Okay? The example Geshe has given is, for example, perception that only perceives a vase or a pot, right, does not perceive a pillar, for example. But this perceiving a vase is not refuting the existence of a pillar, while there's another perception that perceives it, right? In the same way, under ultimate analysis, things should not be findable, but that unfindability does not mean things don't exist at all. Okay? So identifying that as equal to non-existence is overly broad identification of the object of negation. No.
我这现在他现在的这块是不是他 동인고소도 베니 냠샤 이 것도 군도 쇼 지금 말했지. 먼저 다들 오멜로 찍바라 강아 찍바라 거지. 동인고소도 베 군도 쇼다니 요 말아.
노래.
쟁가라서 강아 요 말아.
노래.
제 동인고소도 베니 냠샤 거 쟁가라서 메바 세게리 인데 세바나 힐 메고 그래 봤어 거다.
노래. 나루와.
저
노래.
먼저는 다 동인고소도 이게 무슨 메고 말아. 군도 쇼가 동인고소도 이게 지금 말이 여대로 와. 어떻게 메고 그래서
노서.
계속 유는 쓰거라.叫了我都这位里边就是这种介绍的模式，介绍的那就里边就是面对生活，里边就是那这个热度的话是。
노래.
但这没说那可抽要嘛的，但可没什么他那没法的，他娘下鱼的没法的，娘下干你的，他同时想是吧？有这的地鱼的没法，够干吧你同时想嘛是吧？我地想。
So this is where the critics, have gone wrong, because here the critics assume that the wisdom of the mind that puts the phenomena under analysis is a super duper mind wisdom, isn't it? So if something exists, this wisdom should see, because this wisdom doesn't see anything at the end of the analysis. So therefore, they conclude that nothing exists at all. Yeah? So this is where they got the understanding and interpretation wrong. As you may recall, that the wisdom in the state of meditative equipoise on emptiness, nyamsha yishe, completely sucked into, absorbed into emptiness, nothing but emptiness for that wisdom, right? For this wisdom, no conventional phenomenon appears and exists, okay? And it should not, okay? But that doesn't mean the conventional phenomenon or reality does not exist. For this wisdom, no conventional appearances, no conventional phenomenon exists for this wisdom. But that does not mean that conventional reality does not exist at all. Okay? And that does not mean that the wisdom gone beyond in this meditative state has now knocked out the existence of all the conventional reality. No, that's not the meaning of it, right? There is a difference between unfindability and refuting the existence of things. Okay? And so that's what the Pasankika is saying, that what you are thinking is this, that the wisdom, analyzing phenomena does not find, the wisdom analyzing the ultimate nature of phenomena does not find phenomenon under its analysis. That unfindability should not be translated as refuting the conventional existence of the phenomena. That unfindability should not be equated as non-existence completely. This is where you got too much carried away, too broad identification of the object of negation.
What take that shit up? And the data that Yamsha, which is Mosin, in the Jalas of you want to be semi yomar, but semi yomar, semi unwishable to do in unwishable to any chill, semi yomaris. Things you long time to because the make it not that get the umbu to that saying, Pabel Lam you surely jiggy shots. Because that I'm going to ship again this word I am. Don't you? Don't buy you say I did anything to make the no Shirama, you get over the wa. Don't buy you didn't make the no thought to in a day, anything on the lamb goes you kind of jog to ask you. Shungra not there. Probably going to go your mother. That has a corner said, she done some minds loved. She make almost soul summer, big she up soul summer, no, she was dull summer. Because the summer minds don't look for a day, that summer is. Pavela, that you all your Pavela has Yadina. Any Koshia didn't day your marva. Make the make on Shiba the soul semi in the Pavela has in Devajia Mudua. Devajia Mudua. That till the in Tikona in some in Lamna and make the Nawa to the Winnie Karsa. Don't you thought to Vienna? In the Laman Penny cook. Kali Jago, Midwasana, Deva Yoro. What did it?
Pabelam Gitisha said, So we are on page 127 at the bottom over to page 128. There is a passage quoted from Samadhi Raja Sutra or the King of Concentration Sutra. And So according to the critics, because phenomena are unfindable under ultimate analysis by the wisdom, involved in that analysis, so therefore they conclude that nothing exists at all. Okay, and then they refer back to this quote from King of Concentration Sutras that reads, "The eye, ear, and nose consciousness are not valid cognition. The tongue, body, and mental consciousness are also not valid cognitions. If these sensory consciousnesses were valid cognitions, of what use to anyone would the noble being's path be?" So they have misunderstood and misinterpreted this quote. Okay? So now they're saying that, well, nothing exists at all, right? So there's no such things as valid eye consciousness, valid auditory consciousness, perception, valid, all of that, But that's the wrong interpretation of this passage from King of Concentration Sutra. The right interpretation should be, if emptiness or the ultimate reality is something that our sensory valid perceptions could cognize it, then what need is there to cultivate the transcendental path of the Aryas? There's no need for it, right? If emptiness or the ultimate reality is something you can see with your naked eyes, or is something you can perceive with your auditory consciousness, then there is no need to do meditation. There is no need to cultivate the Arya path, because it's all a useless thing. Yeah, that's the meaning of this, right? So which means that emptiness is not the object of your valid eye perception, not the valid auditory perception. It is only, right? It's something that you can cognize with your mind, if you will, right? And that's the actual meaning of Samadhi Raja Sutra.
in the same model, that same to go, same model is in the Yuba doing Maravas. Same model, Yuba Chonang do Maraves, that was Romu at Susura. So the tea that here in the Chonang in that the Javala so what I told about me, Kunzo the years, the Kunzo de Yom, they may have a they said, what get the Jaw. No Tonta Munde, Guno to do here, they are almost well. Tika the Ripa Kanshake, that the Shelly Jaw rig may be rigged to tell you their ribbon, Chick Jaw on the Abadgers. What is that almost with Tay Jaw of a castle, that he get a hinge to the day in the Tontam de Maze, Guno to your Maris, lad by you, on the church. Pumbaka to your Mala, that getting just as you are. Rangi to us said, that was a Rana Jata, that was Sira. She just said, Rashi to the Jadis, you said, Delia Dali Jata, Shelly Jata, so in a Gundo to a miss loud motorship. Sugar Gundo to a miss you over. The credit that your take is what they ring with this ladder or the dead. So that Trisaka long dessert continuing the Gaje Chavagus, the mere direction that Geshe.
And then on top of page 128, the critics started to again, quote Chandrakirti's commentary on the middle way, kind of tried to support their contention. But then again, they're misquoting the quote. They have really misunderstood the whole quote. So this is all happening because they have failed to precisely identify the object of negation. And then to support their own sort of a limited understanding, they started to quote from King of Concentration Sutra and from Chandrakirti's commentary. But then again, they're misquoting everything, and so that's what's happening. So the explanation given on this is, for example, it says, also, Chandrakirti's commentary on the middle way says, the world is not valid in any way. What does that mean? The world refers to us ordinary beings, the world here. and is not valid in any way means that with regard to the ultimate reality or emptiness, our perceptions are not valid anyway. But it does not mean that we, the ordinary people, do not have any valid cognitions. For example, our visual valid cognition arises in relation to visible forms. Our valid auditory perception arises in relation to the sounds, isn't it? So we do have valid cognitions relating to many conventional phenomena, but as ordinary people, we do not have valid cognition pertaining to ultimate reality or emptiness. That should be the meaning of that, okay? And so they misinterpreted it to mean that ordinary people have no valid cognitions at all. So again, they goofed there. And then, just to support the contention, they quoted Chandrakirti's commentary on the middle way. Let me read it and then translate the explanation given here. The argument which shows that production from self and from other are untenable in the context of ultimate reality also shows that production is untenable even conventionally. As this is so, what argument will demonstrate the production you believe in, unquote. So again, they did not understand the actual meaning of this. This, constitutes what we call the 4-point analysis, isn't it? If things were produced intrinsically, right, then we are saying there are 4 ways to get produced. Are they produced from the self, or from other, or from both, or from neither, right? The 4 possibilities. Okay? And as we apply that 4-point analysis, we don't find anything produced even ultimately or conventionally, intrinsically from the self or from the others and so forth. Okay, that's the meaning of it. This is not to mean that no conventional phenomena exists at all. That's how they took it. They said, if you put the phenomena under conventional analysis, they're saying that, things don't exist even conventionally. But that's, again, the misinterpretation or misunderstanding of Chandrakirti's work.
in 타실 교사야 요 말에 나 교실을 교 니가 예배 교가고 타기 교가고 세요로와 세다다 먼저 타시 교가고 봐야 될이야 이 정신 좀 주제 가고 세요로와 정신 접선의 타이 가능 교고를 세요 뭐 이제 지단 깨신지 타이 가능 교고 세요 말와 깨가 타이 가능 교고 말디 몇개 되고 짜게 되고 가게 되요로와 코디야 깨신지를 타이 가능 교고 와서 되죠로와 그래서 저 타이 가능 미게스 랍도 왔을 때 되는 디렉션 제바시니까 지금 말아 타이 가능 마게는 교와지도 왔어 다 근데 교와도 타이 가능 마게 교와들어 어디에 저런 게 있는데 다도 엄마 집에 자식 가서 타이 가능 교와가야 되거든요 타이 깨는 타이 가능 교고문도 그와 유니데라서 와가 타이 교하면 교학처럼 깨래기도 왔어 어디 시다 건저 교하다 타이 교하서 먼저에는 정신 좀 타이 가능 교고 왔어 타이에디 교할 타이 가능 교고 말아 이와 동도는 맨날 몇고 미주 군저도 요거 쉬어서 어디에 힘자요라 가서 내가 이 교할이야 동도도 얘는 타이 가능 교고 군저 교할은 타이 가능 교고 말해 저 교화 강가야 타이 가능 맞아 샤러와 어디서 거야
So critics are again raising this point that because there is no production, kyewa, the technical term, that is findable under the 4-point analysis: production from the self, production from others, production from both, and production without causes and conditions, if you will. So then they assume that the Prasangikas, perhaps I think this is the case, that Prasangikas are saying that there's no production at all. Okay? But they have failed to differentiate between what is called the inherent production or intrinsic production and the conventional production in general. Prasangikas, or this analysis is saying that there is no intrinsic production, and if there were intrinsic production, then, when we apply the 4-point analysis, it would have been produced in one of the 4 ways. Okay? And the fact that it's not produced in one of the 4 ways means there is no intrinsic production. But conventional production exists. It does not need to be produced in one of those four ways. So there's a distinction between intrinsic production and conventional production. Again, the critics fail to make the distinction, and so they are agreeing with, I think, Pasangigas, that you are saying that there is no production under four-point analysis, but then there is a production. So what's about that, right? So they fail to make that distinction. No. Okay, so I requested Geshe to stop here so that we get about half an hour to do question and answer, because we're dealing with hard topics here. And you are welcome. Okay, let me write to the page number. Where are we?
Well, I guess I have to start.
Yeah, please.
Going back to the very beginning of when we started, and we brought up the self-sufficiently substantial self again versus the inherent one. And last time we answered the question of the assertion of the lower school of what is coarse and what is subtle. Can Geshe, I know we didn't talk about that today, but just so that I can get that out of my head, because it's still there.
Right.
Can Geshe just give the distinction in the Prasangika school? Under the acquired, what's subtle, what's coarse, and under the innate, what's subtle, what's coarse.
Okay, sure.
Just like present.
Sure,
Have
sure.
to
Yes.
just
가장님아 뭐라는 간디 슈베 트레자르 붙여서 공개 매비스로 하게 뭐라 삼는데 스테데 이네 다디 둠데부치 다 간디 슈에디 인사 갱 디스카나로나 스타탄다 아주 오마 텐주베 루시샤천으로 하게 오마 텐주베 루라야 에네 디르바켄 다 가르쇼고레 단다 당시 군다다 현재세저로 와 군다라야 차라니로 하게 nguyên dân ta hiện giờ là ya thara ni nguyên dân ta chỉ sung rồi nãy rồi vậy mà thiên chúa bị sát rồi vậy đang chỉ quân ta là thara ni chứ đang chỉ hiện giờ là ya thara ni nguyên dân ta rồi
thế xưa đã chỉ đông cái công việc người ta bên rong yêu de vào ta gì à để lo nên mình nói sao bây giờ thôi người rồi rồi gì bây ta lo gì mà đấy để đi ngon cái gì à rồi à thế hiện giờ sao rồi đó 군다 와 다들 당시 군다
뭔데 공병
군다 라바데 군다 랑시거래
네 딱에 매 데로 당진을 현ang 아주 당진 군다 제다 현재 시작으로 와게 오마 텐주 봐라 다자다 당진 군다 다가라래 찬이 전으로 와 라과지다 차지로 와게 현재들 라과지다 차지 다디 배전으로 야와 치료 쓰고 있잖아
군다들라 군다다 차라지 시고로 되게 잘 소리로 와 배다这个的人气不对吧？大爷的别个老那么多么老小么，有人多么都个硬个子巴得了，那天气热不起是吧？但对于有这别个老那么老小么一把的，有人多么个个的，每年这个么都是有这300个的，让正常些个嘛的，可以有这子么子么的正常些个是吧？对，滚大下去的，是吧？
滚大rakwa下去。
滚大rakwa下去。
다
지금도 lenje rakwashi rewa gize samge de gunda rakwashi rewa
Okay, so first we will deal with acquired grasping, or I usually call intellectually developed grasping, kuntak in Tibetan, or imputed one. The two versions, the coarse and subtle, according to Pasangika's viewpoint, would be when Pasangikas look at Sevatandika Madhyamika's philosophy, where they talk about how phenomena are actually established through the combination of something existing from its side and labeling onto the phenomena, isn't it? But they do accept that there is no, how to say, but they do assert that phenomena could not exist in and of itself completely, okay? And so there could be that sort of due to our habit or habituation, we are grasping at, right? something existing completely in and of itself. So that will be, according to the Savatandika Madhyamikan's version, so that could be considered as a gross or the coarse form of acquired, that could be considered as the coarse form of innate version. I think I must have messed up. Let's say, first the two coarse version, okay, the coarse acquired grasping and the coarse innate grasping, okay. Let me do this, okay. Maybe I said it wrong in the beginning. So according to Prasangikas, Savatandika Madhyamikans, they accept that phenomena could not exist completely in and of themselves objectively, okay. And it is possible that we have this habituated grasping act, that kind of let's call intrinsic reality, okay, habituated grasping. So that, from Prasangika's point of view, could be considered as a coarse or gross form of innate grasping.
So grasping at phenomena that exist by way of their own characteristics.
Completely right.
By way of their own
Characteristics, right.
That's the coarse one.
That's the coarse one, right? Habit. Okay. Now somebody has the same grasping, but because of reasoning, thinking, like, oh, phenomena has to exist that way, for X, Y, Z reasons. The reasons do not have to be valid, right? So that form of grasping, somebody who has similar grasping, but is based upon his or her kind of thinking, critical thinking or reasoning. So that grasping could be considered as the coarse form of acquired or the intellectually developed grasping, Kunta. Okay? So I'll read with one version here. Okay, good. So okay, now we will go to the other side.
The acquired one and the one that is just shows up like that in our experience.
Right. So that's it, right. Okay, no, that's okay. 다 렌제 다 가서 오래 뒤로 왔다 렌제들 차라니 샤브네로 다 단다디 라고 샤로 다 차와데 군다 다 차와데 다 렌제 차와데 샤고로다
다 대자리 깨지 해고라 렌제도 군다 세야데 가서 유대 사모타마던 디레 캐버 저걸 뭐지 진동다 힘을 채워 왔다 진동서 다 시도 지고 지양래 다그 제게 공항 진도고 제게가 유대 사모던 거로 그 디레 차마도 진동 채워요 말했어 다 렌제락 바이난다 렌제 참모이난다 거기 군다 찍바
Okay, so Geshe wants to clarify this, he said the difference between acquired and innate is simply this. Acquired, but innate is more like habit, right, form. The acquired is due to some kind of a speculation, reasoning, thinking. Okay? But in terms of what they are grasping at, and the grasping itself could exactly be the same thing. It's just for different reasons. Okay? That's what he wants to say, clarify it. Okay? It's not like the acquired has a different kind of grasping, different object. The focus is the same. The grasping nature is the same. It's just for different reasons. Right? The acquired one is because of thinking, speculation, some kind of reasoning, whereas the innate one is just habit, right? Natural habit. Okay. No, it's not the opposite. 다 군다게 디 차와데다 렌제 차와데
차데 다 생겨 저샤 랑운 다 대바 가다 또베 따서만 봐 유든 줘봐 다 가자들 봐 다디 유든 줘샤 마좀네 태기면도 내 유네 태기면도 서다다 랑유 메지 서야도 지야데 신다 군다샤고로 다 간저 유는 것도 갈 레예샤고 너도 건 진들 미샤 좀을 지야스가요 봐
So now I think we can use the same kind of a concept applied to the subtle version of it. And of course, according to Prasangika Madhyamikans, they said everything is merely labeled. Nothing exists in and of itself completely, right? And we could have, in our case, we really don't have to think any reasons usually, right? It's just kind of there innately. And then sometimes some people, it could become speculative, like, well, if such a thing doesn't exist, then the law of karma does not function. If you think in some way, then it started to become acquired, version. Okay.
다 리기님에서 가서 명도 자서 인정해서 동요도 군다다 생기니 명도 자르면서 다 유된 걸 자고 지다직 버려고 그래. 명도 자서 거래샤서 명도 동원이 저 냠도 저도 군다샤로 그러와. 다 디레 가야 매지고 돈다도 그런지 짐버스 하고 대경들 내게서 그러와.
I think as Geshe referred back to this is setting so again. Basically, setting so. Essence of eloquent explanation. I always messed up the setting and this too, the bold speech. So Geshe quoted that stanza which says is the one way to understand the distinction between acquired and innate is in the acquired one there is some sort of recognition, right? Whatever the object is, its name, its generic image recognition, its meaning recognition. There is that, whatever, right? But the innate one, sometimes even we don't realize. We are grasping at it, but we really don't have any recognition of it. It just seems like a natural thing, So that's the innate version of it. Yes, please.
So we talked a little bit about this innate grasping last week. There was the analogy of the man seeking the healthy body. And the answer that we discussed right at the end was, well, it's actually a karmic, some sort of karmic function, innate. And so I'm stuck on this a bit in terms of understanding that process from karmic into habit. So is it we're born with this grasping as a karmic habit? And we've kind of refined it a little bit here. But maybe some clarification there. Thank you.
Kurang di syukur dah tengah jalan hengi example cior wage. Di kazang yang makin pesha nanti kadu sedu kala, dinde dah cior ya, sengaja jo lu sange cebaya cior na wage. Cepo sampai di kaga yuda wage. So dinde ki samlo di ya, an kalau sokor penata cik legi paksa dah le dah dia dah marves wage. Dinde ngajo hengi example di Once you do run Zimba the year, but Zimba the lair the Deva Chadore, country is the dequal succession are on us. Zimba the Yonda, that's again. What lair the day the Yorove, and what you do run a year, but Yanko shoot was in Gay or Cultural.
That did picture Lingy Sidalnata, Kidin, you have that Tongo Yamdo Shagara. The may call some you take me the Yijibara. But that country, some you will change the Yamdo Leltigo. That could have said in it. Singing about talking about Namji men, like what this is hard to see, and got the easy and Yangora. You could ask her. That's what the ladies is done. Tomata Tomaman contact, Tomam Yamdo on the area.
That again, Tom than the Yon the years on the Benadiro again, Tapana, Lunag, Lair, and Yig led the Java Chatting on the Chagana. Yao didn't compete.
That was it, less I 통배 머리고 써야죠. 어디 티셔고 다. 레서가 꿀ung 통보 줘 말에. 어디 내게 티셔도 와. 군다 티셔 말에. 티게 티셔. 어디 레서야 돼. 통보 디 내게 되게 나서야 이거 지금 근데 디 소소 나서야 자셔 버렸다네. 소소 대화도야다 등에서야 시 디레지가네 레게도 용강가 되는 용거라.
그러봐. 한 딘데 레게디 망고 사샤바 되게 야 되게 헨게디 슉치르 콜바 토르 지금은 만게 베나다. 에 머리베 왕기 레사라와 소소 진진제 야 레디 박자 다 저 망고 진디고 있어라와 디 킹기 야 헨게디 담으로 스투고 있는 만데.
디데디 가시 말에. 레지 코는 다다 레즈 레지 오 그라 뭐 레지 코는 라만도 주로. 다 아마 그렇지.
Yes, it's when we say innate or innate or lenje, inborn, that's the word. It says yes, we are born with it. That means for our many lifetimes in samsara, we have this familiarization with this kind of grasping. I mean, when we look at the 12 links of interdependent origination, the first link is called the ignorance of avidya. So that's what it is. Because of that. We have this innate grasping by birth, right, or many lifetimes, and then this innate grasping influences us to behave in certain karmic, directions, and so it's a motivating factor in some sense. That's how it is understood. Okay.
Question about what we talked, Geshe explained about how the ultimate analysis, my understanding was that the ultimate analysis basically does not harm conventional existence.
Yes.
Okay, but it's kind of a tricky situation because that means that, I mean, the conventional is important, how we, it has to be harmed eventually. what I mean by that is that the meditative equipoise on emptiness
Yes.
does harm conventional existence, because once a yogi comes out of that meditation, they don't see conventional existence the way we see it. So it's harmed. So the
Oh.
object is to be
You
harmed.
mean
And
our
yet the
perception
ultimate,
has been changed. That's what you mean.
yes,
harmed,
that's right. Yeah, that's harm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it's not the same.
Understand.
It's
Okay.
an illusion.
Okay.
The yogi knows it's an illusion. So that's really the ultimate goal. But the ultimate analysis doesn't harm it at all. It's like it's completely unrelated to conventional existence. So perhaps maybe is this how what explains this conundrum? The fact that the ultimate analysis doesn't harm conventional existence, but the
does
meditation
affect
or the
our-
path,
right.
the path itself does harm it.
Okay, it affects changes, right? Okay. Akwala this order, taking on the Karshugure, Kenta, Dirwada, Nyamsa Yishiki Walla, ya, and Gunza Gucho Nangi Yomaka Yomasa, again. That on them Jabachedi Kala and Chatham Jagger, the Minibachadu again. In a Digi and a Tanya Yuba Chulia, the Nubaki Yomar, again. Tanya the Yomar Sigomar, in a church in the summertime, in Naki, Kurang did do that. Karsogre, Nyamsa Yishi Nangi, Dakasor, the Tokachor, again. Did Nyamsa Yishi and Yatan, you do Gala, did they Nenjo Badi, Tanda Dirbakan, Tanya Yuba Chu, the Yongdan Jorva, Yuroshi Chin the Orvas, you watch him a day for the nervous or Shamas, and Namji, Dingela, and a Quaji Karso, Tamting the Shibs in Gorva again. That because a cheddar will never so like Chetam Jumata, Miguta, with the showing Gorva. City could never mother so that didn't lamb comedy equally.
되게 로그바디 철누고 당진데 되거라 당진 넘어 담고 여데 인냐샤야르데 미기도 기마타부 남긴지도 소르부게 링링도 매버 차니
최고는 이렇게 유밖에 돼요.
저거는 가게 지야요 봐 다다 로 철누세 디고다 단단간도 람고면 히더도 윤저 빠야 되나 빠자 보내데 로로 놓야지 여러와 다天大 뉴스도 각자가 뉴스야 돼. 그거 로디고 꼭가봐 될라. 뉴스고. 저 뉴야 계죠 말에. 근데 지금 토버지를 에는 비게 미래 섬디도.
알아와.
다 마즈도 거 토버면 거식 말에.
알아와.
그래서 그 당기 신도 가사라. 뒤에 거서 그 유도 매번 찍어는 가식 말에.
What Geshe says is if you use the word no or harm translation, it could be understood in different ways. In the context of this analysis, the harm in the sense that it refutes existence, conventional existence. That's the way it is understood, right? If something is harmed, means it denies or refutes the existence of something. But in terms of development of paths in our mind, the harm could mean just like as we gain realizations, then the negativities and the obstacles in our minds are removed or minimized, right? That's harming. So that's a different notion of it. So going back to what you said, Geshe said, so what's happening is a yogi in a state of meditative equipoise on emptiness, for that wisdom, except emptiness, nothing exists, isn't it? But once the yogi comes out of that meditation, even in the post-meditation periods, now his or her perception has been changed completely. But that does not mean any changes has been done to the phenomena. The ontological status of phenomena is the same. The phenomena as they are. It's just that now you are experiencing the phenomena in a so different way. Everything is seen as an illusion, like a magic, whatever, right? So your perceptions have been changed, right? Tremendously, yeah.
Somebody? Did you? Anybody? About the example that Geshe gave about this introspective exercise that we have to do if we are trying to meditate on the selflessness of the self. Right. Imagining that we're unjustly accused, somebody says, you stole a zo, and you become indignant because you don't even know what a zo is.
Right.
I'm not a zo thief. Right? But by thinking that way, he explained how we can get a sense of an image of the conceptual image of the inherent existence self. Could he give an example of what those things could be? What could that be, for example? What is that? What does it look like, this image? I mean, in his personal experience, what has he identified?
Sure. Yes. 다 가장 게임하긴 디스카 넘버 1. 당한조 나달 현재기 다 점바 쳐와 당게. 네게 등 와서 쳐야 쳐다 잠잠을야. ngaranzolia besirami tera tangboda mera tangboda ninde kadolia and same chara chebena and tesi chona skesi sumorwage ko dide yudan chorwage that this idegalia the king gi kongba shejo thonarwage ko chona de khandero stake de ngazo suksur skue so marwage samrastama khandero shago orasa di chona jorwage ko ta ngat kasoda ngaransin dubi zimbasene mindu jorwage di chona de khandero shago na sangam tera tangboda mera tangboda ji kadorwage ngai number shatan ro mandar chi
pero diro nga se de hyuk sher dra dwa pero da ta choro shore da yo de shore pe ya bubur rig mare se de nga se hyuk sher ro dwa nga se hyuk sher ro da ko ta tak sa mai ge be ling de se le wo ro wa ta ga se nga nye ko se ta to je sa ko se an de shi na de lo hyuk kai de me dwa ti ji de ko de se bo chao ma da ga 그래와 지도 데리가 뒤지 해야 야가도 뭐 민주 소무여서 그러와 그래 근데 대로 개와 징이지 대매 개와 징이지 뒤니 가야 뭐 가이 개와도 뭐 민주 솜 당간도 율도 이마도 율다 대매 개와 징이야 말와 다 니디 여서 다 그래서 그것도 율다 대로 대매 가야 개와 뭐지 뭐 징이야 그다 근데 범주 똑배서 저 로통도 가가 댕지 샤고 말와 뭐 디샤고 와서도 로 휴식 중으로 저도 진짜 샤샤고 다 벌써 봐서 근데 니로 다 제거서 아주시는 가 휴식이라면도 그래 다 해나 휴식 가 휴식해서 배 박사자죠 말에 드디 휴식을 그러고 진짜 가디 이 무엇이 나때 레라요 그래서 히파지지 지금도 코파반 자로 그렇지 샤히도 더 야파도 파자로 걸어 어디 시가데 숨기들에 들에도 와시더디 배 케바도 쇼거래 잡니 쇼거래 그래서
yes Geshe said as he explained the other day too that there are three ways in which things could be experienced or appear to perceptions. One is things appear to perception as truly existent or intrinsically existent. The other one is things appear to as non-truly existent to perceptions. The other one is things appear neither as truly existent nor as non-truly existent. Those two versions. Now, as ordinary people, for us, things appearing as non-truly existent, that doesn't happen to us. So the other two ways could be part of our experiences, isn't it? And so when he said that, when we are like highly praised or highly kind of criticized badly, at such time, if we are very skillful to use our introspect look at ourselves, we might get a better sense of that grasping at the eye is because our eye is inflated at such times. But in other situations, it is not. Like say, normally, we have this sense of like, I'm sleeping, I'm kind of feeling tired, I just want to enjoy. It's just kind of seems like a normal eye, isn't it? But when you are in a very dangerous situation, right, that sense of I is just kind of cranked up. So that's this inflated sense of I that need to be protected or, freak out. So in the same way, when somebody praises like you anything, then there's inflated sense of I. So that helps us to be able to, then it almost sounds very concrete and static and independent. It's almost like separate from you in some sense, But we have to be very careful to look at it. That's why the great masters say it's almost like a spying, right? And if we try to look too hard, we will miss it. And so it just kind of disappears. So we have to be very skillful, spy on itself, then we might get a better sense of that concretized, that kind of independent sense of I. So Geshe says, of course, we rely upon authentic texts to understand the notion of emptiness, right? recognizing the intrinsic existence, grasping all of those things. But then ultimately, it all boils down to our own individual, thinking and trying to identify those things. It's very hard to explain it to each other in a sense. And some of the examples he thought of, it's just like what do you call a dumb person, right, who can't talk, right? Right? I mean, maybe explain a lot of things. But then if you ask the dumb person, why you're giggling and you look so happy, I mean, he can't explain. It's just his experience, Or like a child, like who is so innocent and happy, right? Then that child is experiencing something, but we wouldn't be able to know. And the child cannot explain that to us as well. So I think ultimately it boils down to checking with our own perceptions and experiences, trying to clarify those things in our own mind.
Have given examples, actually, many examples of what that looks like.
Right.
For example, sometimes the inherent self could appear as the eyes, the nose, the ears, a little person in the heart, a little person. So they give all these examples. That's why obviously they can talk. You can talk about these things. This is not about emptiness that you cannot really describe exactly your experience. That's entirely different.
Right.
So it should be possible to do that.
Kurang di sikwa da mi zam zam di nyam nyong da sa di pe ro sha de zam zam la din de tang jing nga di ta sha dang ro wa ke ka cha li ya ani mi ji chen di so so da ka so ko le lu cha she kang ru ji li ya ani be zim ba tang bo yu de ro wa ke ne gu yin am chen ro wa ke ka cha li yang ji seminar tam ti ro wa ke ji sha den ro yin so ba din de da so na mo shi ge do wa sa ko ji ji da ma de sha dang ro ji she me do so ro wa ke
Gamda piji shaya ya, da pungpore subung ding shaya dawo. Semgi de shaya dawo. Kite de yor, diye ganga piji da dangjinguni rege jima, samu rege jima, raba. Da diye kaya ma do ba piji ling de shar go raba.
No. Because I was thinking that people might get different sense of examples that might work for them. But that being said, we also have to be careful that if that sense is somewhat identified with any part of our body aggregates or any part of our mind, then probably we are still off track, because it has to appear as very distinctive, sort of independent, of all this dependency. If somebody said, well, this part of my body, whatever lumpy feeling I have something, right? That's still a little off, yeah.
Symbolic part of the body, completely unrelated. So it has both the sense of being mixed with and it's separate, completely independent of everything else. I think that's what they're talking about.
Yeah, that did it was again. Chichi kangla that dindegi shayun that the lupon ya chichi tende bit war shoro again. Chichi yang ko the kaka in the shaw gro that dinner shago me this or again. Yin ju tang zo karso gore lusem la ko de or again. And then the yang chichi ko kaka ro shading Okay, last yeah. Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you. I have the lost the lower Okay. As you know, the Lunar New Year is right around the corner, and the Tibetan calendar says it's on Tuesday. So therefore, as we always celebrate the Tibetan Losar on Tuesday morning at 7 here. Okay, we'll come together, do some prayers, wish everybody Happy New Year, and then go to work and become real, go to school to teach, in my case. But according to my understanding, Chinese and Vietnamese lunar calendar, it starts on Monday. Yeah, so somehow this time the New Year is pretty much on the same days. Sometimes Tibetans are 1 month behind, or sometimes 1 month ahead. I don't know. It depends. So anyways, everybody's welcome to that. Okay. Gange lo de denye dende nyinda namda raze ve jinye denge jije sije nije tuwa le bomze kanda sebe zera mendon donge jeze ve lozo kunla boje daze yela doje yangden son doza chero nyu deze je mare meze donge nyogo jinye junze rade na dene da Saju daze yunzen lunzo jeze dugu Dalu menzen jambe yanglang de omara bazana Omara bazana de zenden köye kenra veze ye dalu temo mimba rasene kada tenje shunglo dom Lode babe na Sendo zo 说的家族为中白话的跟上本为渠道明白，但帮人了网络技术呗，当年出工作了说完的。Obeisance to my Guru and protector Manjushri, who holds at his heart a scriptural text, symbolic of his seeing all things as they are, whose intelligence shines forth as the sun, unclouded by delusions or traces of ignorance, who teaches in 60 ways with the loving compassion of Father for his only Son, all creatures caught in the prison of samsara, confused in the darkness of their ignorance, overwhelmed by their suffering. You whose dragon thunder-like proclamation of Dharma arouses us from the stupor of our delusions and free us from the iron chains of our karma, who wields the sword of wisdom, hewing down suffering wherever sprouts appear, clearing away the darkness of ignorance. You who have been pure from the beginning, who have completed the stages achieving highest perfection of a bodhisattva, whose princely body is adorned with 112 marks of a Buddha. I bow down to you, Manjushri, Om Arabaza Nadi. O compassionate one, with the brilliance of your wisdom, illuminate the darkness enclosing my mind, enlighten my intelligence and wisdom, so that I may gain insight into Buddha's words and the texts that explain them. Like the sweet perfume of white lotus, born in the ocean of knowledge, nourishing honeybees, the fortunate being, your fame pervades all directions. You are proficient and powerful in upholding the precious doctrine. To you, O Lobsang Tenzing Wangda, respectfully I pray.
Nhất tâm kính lễ Đức Văn Thù Sư Lợi, bậc đại trí ngài điều phục hai chướng ngại, tựa nhật quan lan tỏa khắp mười phương, bậc thực chứng chân nghĩa màu rốt ráo, từ tim ngài Bát Nhã Kinh thủ hộ nhiệm màu, cõi luân hồi chúng sanh thọ nghiệp báo, bị ngăn che bởi phiền não vô minh, sở hữu 60 pháp âm thủ thắng, cùng đại bi ngài hóa độ chúng sanh, tự từ mẫu chăm lo cho quý tử, tiếng rồng vang ngài thức tỉnh hữu tình, thoát khỏi vòng luân hồi nghiệp chướng, gồm trí tuệ ngài chặt đứt vô minh, tận diệt muôn vàn khổ đau cùng ách nạn, trường tử Như Lai tối thắng toàn giác, ngài an trụ nơi thập địa pháp vân, báu thân ngài trang nghiêm thanh tịnh, 112 tướng hảo Như Lai, đê đầu đảnh lễ Đức Văn Thù Sư Lợi, cúi xin ngài tận diệt ám chướng vô minh. Om Arapasanadi. Ban pháp lực diệt phiền não vô minh, được chí sáng con thâm nhập nghĩa màu, pháp vi diệu cùng muôn vàn luận giải, như rượu hương ngọt ngào từ sen trắng, đàng xanh nơi trí thủ thắng đại dương, hàng thiện căn như ong mật thọ nương, hồng danh ngài khắp mười phương quảng bá, đấng thiệt xảo bảo. Nam mô Lobsang Tenzin Wangdak, xin cung kính trì niệm.
Sanje Jindo Mende Viwa Yi Rogun Nanda Jinla Jubai Yo Kari Rabe Gobe Shingan De Pendan Dewa Malu Jungwe Ne 现了是王天神要作业，小月谁的么？天君日